Okay, thank you very much. This talk here is a presentation that I'm going to make on behalf of three persons. First of all, Aku Agustinus Aku-Olsen, who is sitting down there in the middle, who's a community member from Akunak in Greenland, in one of the three communities that are involved in this study, this project that I'm going to talk about. The second person is this guy who's Jens Bakker from the Department of Fisheries, Hunting and Agriculture in the government of Greenland. And I am Finn Danielsen. I'm an ecologist from the Monitoring Matters Network, which is an international network of researchers and practitioners working with innovative approaches to natural resource monitoring. And our website is monitoringmatters.org, and I've left some materials down in the corner if some of you want to look at that. So the presentation today we called Opening Doors to Native Knowledge, Community-Based Monitoring, an Important Tool for Management. And I'll talk about three topics here. First, the added value of involving community members in monitoring natural resources. Then some experiences, both internationally and from Greenland. And then finally, I'll talk about some of the key challenges that we have seen. And first look at what is the added value? Why at all involve community members in natural resource monitoring? Well, first of all, from a national government perspective, it strengthens the dialogue between communities and the government. This is a key concern for the Greenland government. Now, second, from local people themselves, from their perspective, it's very important opportunity for our insights to be heard, for our insights to be used. And then finally, from a global perspective, one can say it's really important for promoting sustainable livelihoods and for promoting sustainable use of biodiversity. Now, moving on to some experiences with community-based monitoring, I'd like to first talk about some international experiences with the characteristics of community monitoring and the quality of community monitoring before moving to the Greenland example. The first look on some characteristics of community-based monitoring approaches. We did a literature study of published natural resource monitoring schemes, looked at over 100 published schemes in the literature, and that revealed that there are really many different types of local involvement. We can also see that from presentations today and yesterday. It's not that you can either involve community members or you don't involve community members. No, there's a whole different wide spectrum of approaches or ways to involve community members. Now, second, we compared 4 different methods of monitoring natural resources and looked at what are we spent the same amount of money on establishing these monitoring methods. 2 methods on the left side which involved community members and 2 methods which did not involve community members. And then we looked at how many management interventions came out of these monitoring methods. This was in protected areas in the Philippines over a 3-year time period. And we can see that on the upper graph that the two participatory methods led to 4 to 6 times more management interventions than the scientists executed monitoring methods without any involvement of community members. In management intervention, we defined like an agreement to maybe not hunt wild pig during the breeding season, or it can be a municipal law deciding not to harvest the shellfish beyond a certain size, below a certain size, and so on. And when we looked at those management interventions that targeted the key threats identified by biologists in those areas, the same pattern emerged. Those methods that involved community members in monitoring led to many more conservation management interventions. That's the panel B there in this graph. Then when maybe people will say, okay, but these management interventions that are generated by community-based methods, maybe it's not really long-term interventions. But we looked at then those management interventions that led to policy change, so permanent changes in the way that resources are being used, and that's the lower panel here. Again, we found that the community-based monitoring methods are much more effective in generating those type of management interventions. So the key point here is that participation boosts action. And I know most of the people here are social scientists or community members, and for them it will not be a surprise. But for me, as a natural scientist, it's actually quite surprising, and it's something that a lot of my natural science colleagues are really saying, can that really be true? But it's really clear. Then we looked at this. We went back to look at published natural resource monitoring schemes, and we looked at how long time does it take from you start collecting data until the results are ready for decision makers to take decisions on, right? And we found that those schemes where scientists are carrying them out without any involvement community members, they take much longer time to from start of collecting data to the results are ready for decision making compared to participatory monitoring schemes. So here you have the right side, you have the time from data collection to decision making, and on the other scale y-axis you have the level of decision makers that are targeted by these studies. And this study showed that when you looked at who that are being the supposed decision makers using the data from these monitoring schemes, they are also targeting decision makers at different levels, because the scientists executing monitoring schemes typically target decision makers at the government level or beyond, international level even. But whereas the participatory monitoring schemes typically target the community level decision makers. So the point I want to make from here is that the scale of decision making and the implementation time differs very much whether you involve community members or not in environmental monitoring. Now, this also means that without involvement of local people, the monitoring may sometimes be isolated academic exercises with very little impact in the real world. Then a lot of people, a lot of natural scientists particularly, are questioning the quality of community-based monitoring. Now we compared, we asked scientists and community members to look after the same species at the same site at the same time in 4 countries, 1 country in Asia, 2 in Africa, and 1 in Latin America. And over a 3-year period on 35 sites, we found that the community members and the scientists, they found almost the same trend over time in both in birds, that's the left part of the graph, as well as in mammals, as well as in signs of resource harvest. So the white one here is the local measure of trend over time for birds, and the shaded one is the scientist, and we see that they match each other very well. So the point here is that if local people are committed and trained in natural resource monitoring, their results are not in any way inferior or less reliable. Not a surprise to most of you here, but still it's a huge surprise for most natural scientists, I tell you. Now, finally, let's get to the Greenland example. That's why we are here, okay? So, after many years of discussions and frustrations over that the community members in Greenland did not feel that they were involved in decisions on management aspects, and the government did not feel that the largely American and Danish scientists in research institutions in Greenland did not provide them with useful input to management. It was finally decided back in 2008 to try and pilot test community-based documentation and management of living resources in Greenland. And the project is working in 3 communities in northwest Greenland, and one of them is the village that Aku is coming from, which is called Akunak, shown here by the arrow. And these are areas, of course, where the environment is very rapidly changing and is seriously impacting the local livelihoods. Just the ice situation the last 2 years has just been completely frustrating. It's very hard to plan your hunt and fishing trips. Now, all this project, what it's about, is actually very simple. It's the steps that are involved is that first, the village committees, as part of the government system, we have a village committee in each village. They establish local natural resource council as part of this project. These are the hunters and fishers and others with environment interest. 5 to 8 people that are particularly knowledgeable, and we try to have both women and men and different age class, people from different ages as well. And the council then decides which species and resources should be monitored. It's not the government, it's not biologists from outside. They decide if they wanted to be part of this, and which they all wanted, I tell you. They decide then which species and resource use they want to keep track of. And then the project tried to come up with modules for how they could keep track of these species. And then the members compile data on the species and resource usage during their regular field visits while they're out hunting or visiting family members or other communities. Anyway, then every 3 months the data are summarized, discussed, and analyzed. And I don't know what happened here. Based on this, the Natural Resource Council come up with proposals for possible management interventions. And the proposed management decisions and the supporting data are then forwarded to the government. These are the steps involved in this scheme here. So, it's really the local Natural Resource Council which provides information up to the village board, the information is submitted to the municipal levels where some decisions can be taken, but many decisions will have to be raised even up to the national level to be approved. Here you can see there's a photo from Akko in one of the meetings in Akunak Natural Resource Council. And once a year, the idea is that there's a meeting in the whole community where the discussions and the findings of the council is presented to get their feedback. And this is what the social scientists call triangulation. And this helps the people will say, oh, but this is completely rubbish. I mean, we've seen that over there. There's plenty of idols at that time of the year, just because you didn't go there this year. And are you proposing this? I mean, it should be proposed like this, because otherwise it's not really reflecting the real situation. So it's an opportunity to provide input to the whole community, and also to get feedback and to get management proposals that have a wide support in the community. Now, how are the data used from this scheme? Well, here's a couple of examples. First, the community members, they were really concerned with the number of shrimp trawlers in the area in front of the village. So they decided to keep count of how many shrimp trawlers are there. So they found that in the shallow sea area in front of the village, there's 4 to 5 trawlers every day during April and May 2010, and it's the same as in 2009, but it's much more than before. And it's huger vessels and with much heavier equipment. So the issue here is that the degradation of the seafloor might affect the population of Atlantic wolffish. That's what the Natural Resource Council in this village is very concerned about. So they proposed that there should be a municipal decision to restrict the size of vessels in this particular area. Another example is that another community have been worried about the large number of Canada goose that they see now. They see bigger flocks, they see them earlier and later, they see them taking over nesting grounds around in their area, and they're concerned that the Canada goose may outcompete the threatened Greenland white-fronted goose. So they recommended that the government should expand the allowed hunting period by 2 weeks. This is another example of a management proposal coming out of this community monitoring scheme. So who are the data managers? Well, the data managers, they are the community members in the community. What are the basic raw data? The raw data are field forms in the good old way, filled in by hand with pencil, on species resource use, the quantity, the place, and the time, and often with a lot of notes. And the interpretation is first local and prompted by filling in our form. For instance, for Greenland halibut, it could be, the September 2011 sea over Kulark has so many fishing days. What was the trend in this year compared to last year? Well, there was increase. Is this an important finding or not? It's a very important finding, they feel. What is the explanation? Well, we think the population is increasing. Is there any proposed action? Not really for the time being. But by filling in this form, the community is kind of forced to really think about this, whether it's important and what could be the reason, and can something be done about it. Now, the costs are very low. We heard today that many schemes have problems with the cost. We were told you can't work in Greenland with community members without paying them $200 a day. None have done that before. You can't. People were queuing up to join this, and they don't get a penny out of it, but they feel it's important for them to do. So it's possible to sustain. And the advantage is, of course, that these people are present all year round, unlike the scientists. The community monitoring can document local knowledge, it can encourage local discussion, and it can shorten the time from observation to decision. It took 10 years to increase to decide for the government to increase the hunting period on Canada goose. Oops, now I'm moving around a little bit. It does not replace scientist monitoring, however, but it helps pinpoint species or areas in need of attention. Now, finally, what are the key challenges? Well, first, if you look at the Greenland case, it's been relatively successful in increasing the local capacity to document resources and in local engagement, in management resources, and encourage adaptive management and in strengthening the dialogue between the government and communities. But it's a challenge to manage shared populations we share with Canada. You need to have information also at larger scale to know whether it's local idols or whether it's idols from other areas. And this is where it's important to link the information provided by scientists and from several countries and to inject that into the discussions with the communities. Also, we have a problem that the municipal government is very, very slow at the moment because of changing structures. And then sometimes there's interference of political interests. In one of the communities, we see that people are more interested in coming up with proposals for what to do than in actually carefully noting down the data and recording the data. And sometimes there can be interference of what I could call the political interests. And internationally, I think it's a key concern that community monitoring is not in the textbook of biologists. Actually, it's sometimes to look a little bit down on you if you're dealing with these things as a biologist. You need to have more capacity building undertaken among government staff and community-based organizations, and you need to get these things into the textbooks of the future generations of biologists and resource managers. Some scientists remain skeptical about this. We need further rigorous validations, documentation showing when does it work, when does it not work. And finally, as you can see from this local workshop, there are very few and isolated initiatives so far. It was fantastic to hear Kyla's and Trevor's presentation from this morning from Inuvialuit area. They seem to be doing similar stuff there. We think we need more networking with initiatives like this, and we're very keen on establishing network with like-minded, management-oriented, forward-looking initiatives like this. So we talked about the added value of it all community members, the experiences and the challenges. So I think all is left to say kuyanak, as we say in Greenland. Thank you very much.